All right, everyone. Good morning. It's Monday morning, the start of a brand new week, and everything is good, John. No complaints about anything in my entire life, apart from the 2 hours sleep I got last night, which wasn't ideal, but well worth it to watch Celtic claim honour number 119.
Yeah, I'm just glad I'm not one of those people complaining about phantom penalties this morning, Hamish, shall we say. So
Uh,
we're on the other side of that coin and feeling good, feeling happy. I always love a final. I love a final, especially when you know Callum McGregor's in the team who doesn't lose finals, so you know you're on to a winner. And although there was ups and downs, tossing and turning, roller coaster, afternoon, evening at Hampden, eventually Celtic come out on top again.
I've just had an update on the Rangers' gripes after the game yesterday. They've actually moved on from the what was the issue they've got? Sorry, penalty. Yeah, the issue they've moved on from that, and their new
Right.
one is apparently Kuhn fouled Diamandi just prior
Ugh,
to his goal. So I'm sure there'll be a
it's a
new
wee
one in the
shame.
next few hours. I'll keep you updated with that. How are we, everyone? Good morning. I can tell you're all in a fabulous mood. We're going to do our best to dissect what happened yesterday, make sense of it. Um, might be a task because it was certainly a lot happened, John. It was just
Yeah.
a mad game, like mad game. I mean, familiar or similar, sorry, to the game at Ibrox at the end of last season in terms of incidents.
Yeah, so I for the first time ever, I was taking notes yesterday during the game for some reason. It's a new era for John McGinley. I was taking notes during the game, and it totaled up 4 or 5 pages. That's how crazy it was. That's how much stuff was happening. It was a wild afternoon,
What kind of
and one
things were
of the
you
best
writing down?
finals. Yeah, it was one of the best finals you'll see. I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're on the receiving end of that, um, you try and just forget about it as quickly as possible. But Celtic fans will remember that as one of the great finals, one of the best finals that they've witnessed, both for a neutral and even as a supporter watching it on the ride that it took you on. The lows were low, but the highs were so high, and that's what football's all about, really.
I was listening to Cameron Carter Vickers speak, and I think it was in an interview with the BBC after the game, and he said that that was his favourite way to win a cup final. He said if you could choose and you knew you were going to win the penalty kicks, he said he would choose that every time. And I thought that was an interesting comment. And then I was thinking, is it the best way to win a cup final? Like if you knew you were going to win in penalties, you'd probably still want to win comprehensively, wouldn't you? But in terms of drama and elation, those penalty kicks were just ridiculous because it
And
was just such jeopardy there.
and you would want Dyson Maeda to stick in the winning penalty as well. I mean, what? I mean, this guy Hamish, what? He's come, he's come from the other side of the world, and at times has drawn frustration from the Celtic support. And over the last 12 months, it's just become the most glorious icon of Celtic Football Club
Yeah.
in its current form. And he's just such a unique footballer. He gives you joy when he's playing. He gives you joy, when he's celebrating. He gives you joy on the side of the pitch. Everything he does is fantastic, and the Celtic support absolutely adore him. I don't think there's another player that Celtic fans love more right now than Daizen Maeda, which is quite a feat considering some of the stars in that team.
I saw him. I need to properly watch the clip back, but I'm sure he gave an interview after the game and said that for his goal he'd mishit the shot, which was the most Maida thing ever because he it was too perfect a goal for him in terms of like the touch he took was just took it out of the sky, cushioned it, and then slid it home. So apparently it was some sort of a mishit for the finish, and you wouldn't have it any other way with Daizen Maida. Took his penalty well as well. I mean, but that's what I mean. That's how on a knife edge yesterday was like up until the final kick of the entire afternoon, 3 hours, whatever it was, maybe not quite 3 hours, I had in my head we could still lose this because if Maida had missed, you're like, God, we've missed another chance to win it. Rangers go up and score, and suddenly you need to score. So it was just like on such a knife edge, and it felt like it was on a knife edge all afternoon. But it's no coincidence, I don't think, that we come out in the winning side. And
No,
I know we've in recent derbies, none of them have gone to penalties, but a lot of them have been close games. And I think that's now is that now 4 wins in a row at Hampden? against Rangers in games that have all been relatively tight, and that's not a coincidence.
No, it's not a coincidence. And Rodgers' record against Rangers is remarkable. Now, some matches may be tighter than others. Some matches Celtic may, dominate proceedings and win by a few goals. Some matches may be like yesterday. We said it last week, and I'm sure a lot of Celtic fans were thinking yesterday it was never going to be a walkover. It was always going to be a tight, nervy. That's what finals are, and it's usually what finals are, regardless of who Celtic's opponent are. So, there's something about Hampden, there's something about the occasion, there's something about the silverware on the line. It just makes you play within yourself a little bit. But Rodgers has played Rangers 20 times, I think, and he's only lost once. That can't be a coincidence. That's not something that can just be luck or he gets the rub of the green or whatever. That's Rodgers dominating this derby fixture, dominating it. Absolutely bodying Rangers more often than not, far more often than not. And I think there's something about the way his leadership style, his calmness, his awareness of the stakes and the context of the game that just transfers to the player and gives them that clarity, even when things aren't going well. I think we can all acknowledge, and everyone will acknowledge in the chat, that Celtic were not good in that first half yesterday. by any means.
Callum McGregor said that.
Yeah. Celtic were not good in that first half. But Rodgers and the players worked on stuff at half-time. You made a little tweak. Celtic came out the gate in the second half and were far better and built themselves into that advantage that they held, which obviously was slipped and retaken and slipped again. But they built themselves from a deficit when they looked kind of down and out really at half-time. Nobody had much hope that Celtic were going to create much. And Rodgers managed to give his players that impetus to go on and really take the final by the scruff of the neck. And exceptional stuff from the whole group.
I'm always wary after these derbies. I think the narrative can, and maybe I'm biased, I guess I'm biased, but the narrative can often favour Rangers, and their fans start to drum up this narrative, and we've seen it in a number of derbies in recent years. We weren't good yesterday. I thought we were still the better team over the course of the game. And take extra time, for example. We were the far better team in extra time. I know chances, they potentially had as many chances as us, but seeing in terms of getting the ball down and controlling the game and seeking to get that late winner, we were the only team trying to win that game in extra time, as far as I'm concerned. Certainly at the end of extra time, they were playing for penalties. So for as poor as we were, and really a lot of our players weren't at it yesterday. I thought Callum McGregor was pretty poor, I'll be honest. But we were still the team who I think showed more composure. And we, as I say, we were the team trying to win the game. And that's why when it goes to penalties, I think they get what they deserve, because they were playing for penalties.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I think they ran out of steam or whatever. Maybe they had to play for penalties because they knew they didn't have the energy in the game to push for a winner. Maybe that was how they viewed it. But I think when you play for penalties, then you're just setting yourself up for defeat, because penalties are usually they're a 50-50 affair. The pressure in those moments is exceptional, and players do crack under that pressure. And we saw that Ridvan Yilmaz cracked under the pressure of facing Kasper Schmeichel, who I thought was excellent in that penalty shootout. Not just the save he made, but just this using his experience, all his little tricks and all his little things to give himself an advantage in that penalty shootout. I thought Kasper Schmeichel really brought that to the occasion. But I think when Rangers are playing for penalties, you deserve to get beat, because you should be pushing. It's a cup final. It's all on the line. You can't make it a coin toss, on penalties. You've got to go for a winner.
And that just goes down to the mindset of the two clubs. We would never settle for anything domestically, regardless of the situation we're in. Brendan Rodgers is always going to have his team pushing forward. I thought that was really interesting. I noticed there was one player, Kasper Schmeichel, wasn't winding up before he took his penalty, and that was the fellow goalkeeper. So I thought that was a wee interesting kind of moment, the goalkeepers union or whatever they call it. And yes, everyone, thanks for pointing out Dyson Maida's mishit was his penalty, not his goal, which makes a lot more sense. That I should have really have paid more attention to what I was listening to. Right, a few comments. Frankie saying, just look at their 3 goals, shocking mistakes from us. Brad, Taylor's mistake was more of a great read by the Gers player. It was just, that was kind of it in the first half. I thought it was a similar approach to what Zagreb had done a few days earlier. letting us have the ball, but just waiting for those kind of cross-field passes. And we got away with one earlier in the first half, Trusty, and then they pounced on that Taylor one, and it was all looking a bit grim at that stage.
Yeah, they were counting on us. It wasn't just the misplaced passes, of which there were a few. It was just that the passing was too predictable as well. So when the pass wasn't as slick or as quick, or they were taking too long to pass the ball, Rangers knew where it was going, and so they could try to intercept or put pressure on players easier. And you saw that from the goal they scored in the first half. You know, it was pretty poor, but I think as Diamandi puts pressure on Taylor initially, which rushes him into the pass, he's caught dallying on the ball a bit. So it's not just the fact there's a bad pass. They were actually just did a job on us, I thought, in that first half. And they were far better than, obviously, the derby earlier in the season. And, yeah, Celtic had to find something different in that second half. And what they found was just quicker passing, less dallying on the ball. And Rodgers said this after the game. That's why he substituted Austin Trusty and brought Liam Scales on. Now, Liam Scales has his faults, he has his benefits, but I do think he is far more progressive with the ball and far more ambitious with the ball when he has it at his feet. And I think that paid off ultimately, because I think Celtic did start moving the ball quicker. We did have more energy in our performance. We started to establish ourselves again on the right flank. And that's where the pressure came ultimately for the goal, for Greg Taylor with his redemption moment with that deflected shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought Kuhn was excellent. I found the centre-back thing interesting, and you're right, Brendan Rodgers has confirmed that there was no injury to Austin Trusty. It was purely tactical at half-time. I didn't actually know Liam Scales was kind of better suited to that kind of game plan than Austin Trusty. I thought Austin Trusty was quite comfortable coming out with the ball. And I always thought at times Scales dilly-dallied.
I think Rodgers' problem is that Trusty was just a bit too safe with his possession. He was just passing it sideways too often to Carter Vickers, or passing it back to each other, whereas Scales takes the ball, he takes a touch, and he kind of runs onto it and tries to look for a forward pass. And I think that was the little tweak that Rodgers was going for there.
Okay. But that's, I guess, I said at half-time, it was one for Brendan Rodgers to work out, and I guess we got there in the end. Turning points in the game, because you always try and put your finger in the wee moments. The obvious one is the big chance Rangers have the 4-1. I've watched that back a good bit today, and Carter Vickers does brilliantly, right? Carter Vickers is excellent. The guy whose name's now escaped me there, forward, has to go left with it. Like, it's ridiculous. And someone else pointed out, I saw it earlier, saying we got a similar chance of 4-on-2 that ended up with Kuhn's goal near the end. And I think that's a big difference. Clinical football, they just didn't have that. But Carter Vickers did do really well.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to... You can't really sugarcoat it. If Rangers score that goal, I think they win that final. I think if Rangers go 2-0 up in that game yesterday, I think they win that game. And I think that Carter Vickers block is the turning point in that game. And I think it felt like that at the time, because Rangers have this opportunity. Taylor's made another mistake again, has allowed them to break, and they're 4-1. And I was convinced they were going to score that. I was shocked when Carter Vickers managed to make that block and managed to put himself in between the ball and the three Rangers players that were behind him. It was unbelievable, really. And Carter Vickers, he does come up with the big moments, Hamish. He does come up with those.
Yeah, and then shortly after that, because that was near the start of the second half, I didn't think we were playing much better at the start of the second half. Nicholas Kuhn has a wee moment where he completely skins Yefty on the right wing. It doesn't come to anything, but I just felt that lifted the place.
I agree. I had that noted down, and at that point, I think it had already become apparent that he had the measure of Yefty, didn't he? That he had the beating of him, and anything that Celtic were doing good was coming down that side. And I think there was a moment after that as well where Johnston fed it into Kyogo as well, and then shortly after Celtic scored. I think that little burst of pressure on that right side just put Rangers on the back foot a bit, and they were suddenly a bit more hesitant, and ultimately that leads to the goal.
Jamie asking about Greg Taylor, and it's probably a good time to move on to him, because it's his. He's involved in a number of the key incidents yesterday, and clearly it's his mistake for the first goal. He pops up, and probably a fair section of the support, if it was their choice, wouldn't have had him come out for the second half, potentially. I think a lot of people would have had Vai coming on, because Taylor's head did seem to go. I mean, that mistake for the 4v1 was that was a clear evidence for me of a player who was just having a bit of a shocker at that stage. But to his credit, real credit, he's the guy who makes the equaliser. And I know it's a huge slice of luck, and it's not the first time he's had that against Rangers and at that end at Hampden. But like that's what you need in cup finals, moments like that, taking a bit of initiative.
Taylor's not someone who lets his head go down, so you'll say that for him. I think what happened yesterday is Rangers knew how to play his inverted role. I think that's been a way for Celtic to exploit teams a lot over the last couple of years, and Rangers, have been on the receiving end of that as well. I think yesterday they worked out how to deal with him, and I think they isolated him as well in terms of like pressuring him and getting on top of him. And I think he was having a bit of a nightmare. But again, I like you say, I mean, you can't fault a player who's having a nightmare manages to still come up with a big moment that helps you win a cup final. I think there are issues there in regards to should Celtic play with a more traditional wide left player. Will that help? Should we keep pursuing this kind of extra man in midfield thing? What are the benefits and the negatives of that, and should we be transitioning away to that now, because we don't know if Taylor's going to be here long term, so should we be thinking about moving away from that already? So there are issues around that, but I did love obviously seeing Taylor come up, because when what it's like when someone's having a nightmare, he's getting grief from fans. Like,
yeah, it's awkward.
You can feel it, and so when someone comes up with a big moment after that, I do enjoy a player having his moment of kind of getting it right up the people who were moaning.
And I think he came on to a game. There was one a few minutes later, you remember it, big ball up in the air, and he came and met it and really aggressive, and it just gave him a confidence boost. Having said that, I thought Vai was really good when he came on. Really impressed with Alex Vai yesterday. We can move on to our subs in general. I thought Anthony Ralston was fantastic yesterday. I know he had that traditional cross out the park, but I genuinely thought he was excellent when he came on. And there's always concern when you see Alistair Johnson go off, because Johnson's so important for us. And sometimes Ralston, if he comes into games, you can notice there's a bit of a downgrade there in the nicest possible way. I thought he was fantastic yesterday, Ralston, from the minute he came on.
I thought it was pretty clear that Johnson was playing through pain from the start. I know he had a knock earlier in the week, and like he'd kind of been recovering, and Rodgers saying no, he was fine. But it just did seem like he was struggling a wee bit with whatever issue that he had, and I thought that was apparent because Johnson wasn't at his best either. But I agree, Ralston came into the game and did have an effect. Just to shout out as well, like a sub that didn't happen. Now, a lot of people probably would have been calling for Ray Otati to be subbed off in that game. Rodgers keeps him on, and then Ray Otati ends up probably being our most impressive player in that extra time period.
Yeah,
so it just kind of shows you that these games can go either way. Just because a player's having a poor game, they can come into it. And I thought Otati was probably the player who had the most composure in that extra time period, to be honest with you.
It's interesting that, though, because he started the game really kind of, I don't know if nervous is the right word, but clearly was giving the ball away a bit. And I think one of the first things he did was just pass the ball straight to James Tavernier. And then there was one where he was on our attacking kind of the Rangers goal line, and he just let the ball run over his foot and it went out for a goal kick. And I probably again would have had him off, but I don't know if it was just a case of the game opening up a bit in that extra time, and he just I felt that in that extra time we needed composure because Rangers didn't have it at that stage. And to be honest, Arnie Engels didn't really have it either, and Callum McGregor, as I've already said, wasn't having a great game. Hatate gave us that real composure. The amount of times he would get the ball in a kind of awkward position, a defensive position, and he'd turn and he'd find a gap. It was really good.
And I do, the energy had gone out of Rangers at that point, so that is a factor as well. They were no longer as aggressive or, as in the players' faces as they were during especially the first half and into the second half. But yeah, Hatate did help us, get through that as well and ensure that there was no big late moment that, we lost it before the penalty shootout.
I think that's I know we had a clearly defensive errors yesterday, but I think that's the big thing for me in the second half like kind of late on in the second half and into extra time, I felt that we were pretty strong in everything that we did. We didn't really offer them up anything in extra time. I thought Cameron Carter-Vickers just had a great game. just what a defender that guy is, and everything kind of comes from that in a defensive sense. He's such a leader. But that was my big positive. As much as we maybe didn't create much in extra time,
Mm-hmm.
I felt we were in control of extra time. There wasn't really a period where I felt Rangers are knocking on the door here.
Yeah, and remarkably calm as well, because when a team comes back at you like Rangers did in the second half, they should have really had the momentum in that extra time period. They should have carried that through.
Yeah.
They should have been the team on the up, just in the way that the match panned out, and they kept coming back into the game. It was kind of Celtic in the end who couldn't put it away. But the calmness of Rodgers transfers to his players, and just to take that moment and just reassert themselves in the game. Yeah, excellent. And it's almost a shame we didn't win it in that extra time period, because that would have been, I think, deserving of the 120 minutes as a whole. And then the players step up in the penalty shootout.
There was a debate on the coverage I was watching of the game last night about whether we should do away with extra time or not. And just because it was such a frantic 90 minutes and go straight to penalties, because extra time was a little bit of an anticlimax, but I still enjoyed it, and I thought Celtic were pretty strong, as much as we didn't create much. I mean, my ball saying Rangers' legs were gone in extra time may well have been a factor there, given that they'd played on Thursday, and they were also doing a lot of chasing in that first half as well. We were able to rest a bit when we had the ball. Arnie Engels struggled a bit, to be honest. Like I found him quite frustrating, but he also did set up the third goal with, I think, a brilliant cutback, and also took his penalty really well.
Very intelligent cutback, very aware cutback, because the easy thing to do, and what most players would do in that situation, is play it across the 6-yard line and try to get a nick into the goal. But he knew that Kuhn was there waiting, and that is what we want to see from Arnie Engels, is that kind of thinking and that kind of cleverness. That's what we want to see in those situations. So I full fair play to Arnie Engels for delivering in that moment. That was obviously one of the huge moments in the game, and if he doesn't have that awareness and doesn't have that intelligence, then Celtic maybe don't score that third goal. Generally, I agree with you what you said earlier. It just did seem like, he's just, I think he gets caught up in the game around him a bit. He gets caught up with the occasion sometimes. Sometimes he feels like he gets caught up in the atmosphere too. You see Arnie Engels quite a lot kind of throwing his arms up a little bit and maybe arguing back a little bit with things that aren't going quite well, just with referees and everything. And I just feel like we need more focus from Arnie Engels. If he just focuses on his own game and just focuses on what's in front of him, then I think he'll be a more effective player. But it just feels like he gets caught up in everything around it sometimes. That's my reading of it anyway. Obviously, I don't know the guy, so I don't know. But I just want him to just kind of show a bit more maturity in the match and stop rushing onto every ball, and because that lack of composure is notable for me. That is notable for me. But in the big moment, he delivered.
Yeah, he's certainly, for a period of time now, I think it's fair to say he has been going through a dip. I mean, he comes into games, he's giving the ball away. I maintain that it will come right for him. I think he's got the attributes there, and you see bits of it yesterday. There was one against Zagreb, and there was one yesterday of him. In fact, it was the third goal yesterday, him running up the right hand side. And you remember there's one against Zagreb when he ran up the left, and so you see what he can be: real energy, box to box player with a bit of quality. I think if he works in that composure and keeps the ball, and to be honest, he might just be going through a bit of a rough period. Confidence clearly is taking a bit of a knock, I think it'd be fair to say. So maybe coming on, scoring that penalty under pressure will boost him, because I had him down as a miss yesterday, just given how he'd played.
Yeah, and the misplaced passes don't feel good when you're watching either, especially when it feels like every phase of play and every change of possession feels significant in the game, especially supporters when you're watching a derby final. It feels like when Rangers win the ball off you, it's a complete disaster. So every misplace is highlighted and scrutinised to the nth degree. So there is an element of that in how we're all remembering yesterday, and hopefully, I think if he just finds a bit of something inside himself that shows he's ready to step up and be a main man for Celtic, that would be fantastic. I think we're all dying to see that. Everyone's wanting it to happen. Nobody's wanting him to fail at Celtic. We all want to see the best of Arnie Engels, and hopefully it just comes. It's one of those ones that comes over time.
Yeah, right, Mark. Vi Ralston outstanding when they came on. Yeah, I agree. I think we've made that point already. Dyson was man of the match for Chilpel. He only won in the first half. He got past match. I don't actually think he was like great in the first half. I felt there was a lot of the ball where he was getting the ball with his back to goal, and it was kind of the play was condensed and it wasn't really working. You need Maida running in behind, and I felt we got more of that in the second half. Jason saying best players Dyson, CCV, and Casper. Penalty shootout. Are you one of these people who fears the worst when it comes to penalty shootouts? Why is that? Like, why?
You know what's weird?
It's weird.
I'm generally quite an optimistic, calm fan who can see things, but in the heat of the moment, I really hate penalty shootouts. I just feel like, because I just feel like there's such a coin flip anyway. I don't know if there's any theory or structure behind a team being better at another team at penalties. I think it's just on the day. It's just in the moment, and you can just never tell what's going to happen. There's no rationalising a penalty shootout. I think that's what it is. I can't rationalise it in my head, so I'm just fearing the worst because
maybe it.
Yeah, when I don't feel like I've got a trust in Celtic to do the job on the pitch, because I think they're better than most teams to play, between the white lines in a match situation in open play. But in a penalty shootout, anything can happen, and so I just naturally. So I wasn't fancying it at all. I have to be honest with you. Before the penalty shootout, I was just pretty fearing the worst. I have to be honest.
And it felt like a few of our potential penalty takers had gone off the park at that stage as well. As it turned out, and I think Brendan Rodgers made the point after the game that we practice penalties a lot. I don't know if that's every week or just in the lead up to cup games, but clearly we take penalties well. You look back at that Aberdeen semi, we took them pretty well, didn't we? Apart from, was it Joe Hart? The penalties were great under pressure at that Rangers end, but I think more significantly going second as well. The pressure, the pressure was on us for all of those.
Yeah, Callum McGregor noted that in his post-match comments, in the sense that I think he said to the players, we just have to do it the hard way, because they lost the toss for which end it was in, and they lost the toss for who takes the penalty. So they lost both tosses and still came in that penalty shootout. And I think the major credit has to go to Kasper Schmeichel for that, because it was I thought he was exceptional. A less experienced goalkeeper, I think, perhaps maybe doesn't put Ridvan Yilmaz off to the extent where he misses. Yeah,
but I was watching him before the shootout, and he was so relaxed, like he was kind of joking around almost, and clearly he was very focused. But I think that's where you get the advantage of having an experienced goalkeeper like Kasper Schmeichel. There's a lot of chat in the summer about us potentially going for a younger player, and you never know how things would have worked out in a alternate universe. But yesterday we had that real experience, a guy who's been around everywhere and wasn't really fazed by that at all.
And if you're wondering who was down to take Celtic's sixth penalty if it was needed, it was James Forrest, he said after the game. So
he would probably have scored as well. James Forrest is very good at penalties.
I think he took a wee injury, took a wee knock, so maybe not. So, but Daisy Maida got the job done. He's the Derby hero. He's the king of Glasgow, as they say. He is everything that people like to project onto players in this fixture. Daisy Maida is that current icon and hero of this fixture, and he deserved to score that winning penalty for me.
Yeah, it was pretty special. So another cup in the trophy cabinet, and pretty special. I guess time will tell how special that feels, but I think it will be a pretty significant victory looking back in a number of years' time, beating our rivals on penalty kicks. And as the title says, first part of a potential treble as well. And I know it's early to be talking about that, but we're looking good for the league, clearly. I think the game at Ibrox will be a big one now. They're always big, obviously, but I think clearly that's a must-win for them if they have any chance of winning the league. So we need to go there and ideally not lose that game. But you're certainly looking good for 2 trophies, and you've got the Scottish Cup as well.
I mean, usually I'm loath to talk about a treble so early in the season. Usually I am. But I just think with the player and the manager speaking so openly about it over the last 6 months, they won a double last year, and their first message was, we want to win a treble next year. So if they're coming out with it, then there's no reason why we all can't be talking about it too. And I do think it is on. And yeah, the next derby is massive, and it comes up again really quickly. But I mean, we're only a couple of weeks away from it.
Yeah.
And it's good. I'm looking forward to seeing how the team handle and reaction of that. You can see what Rangers are trying to do after the game. They're trying to get a bit of siege mentality in the go and feel like it was against them a bit, and like they're going to try and
Heard it all
restart.
before,
Yeah,
John.
we've heard
We've
it all before, but they're going to try and use that, I think, in the next derby, and use that to energize and motivate them. They were, watching us lift the trophy and all that kind of thing. So they're trying to get an edge. But I'm just like, if you've lost countless trophies to Celtic over the last few years, can you still use that as an edge to motivate yourself for the next match? Well, we'll see in the next one, won't we?
But like, I feel like we've been here over the last 8 years or so many times. They lose a narrow game to us, and suddenly their mindset is, "Oh, Celtic aren't that far ahead of us. We'll get them next time." That's like the motto. And then the reality is,
next time FC.
There's two types of derbies at the moment. There's the one where we turn up and play amazing and beat them 3-0, 4-0. That's one type. And the other one is when we don't turn up and they do turn up and we still win. Maybe just by a goal. Or if they manage to celebrate a 3-0 draw, which I noticed they didn't do yesterday, but they did that earlier in the year. I've just got a wee stat. I was working it out yesterday because, as you know, 119 is the big number, John, and we don't need to go into all of that because we don't need to boast about these various things. But I was just thinking, Brendan Rodgers came in 2016, which isn't that long ago, really, when you think about it in the grand history of Celtic. We were in 99 trophies when he came in. We're now, for the entire history of our club, which, by the way, pretty good history prior to Brendan Rodgers coming in. Pretty good history, I'd say. 99 trophies. We're now in 119. 17% of our entire trophy haul has been won in the last 8.5 years. 5 trebles, 2 doubles, and whatever this season brings in 9 seasons. I mean, like, these days of us winning trophies, you keep thinking they're going to end, but they don't seem like they are.
One day there'll be enough distance between this period and whenever anyone looks back, and they'll understand the historical significance of this period. It's hard in the moment to feel that historical significance, but it's remarkable, and there's a reason why most Celtic supporters, or every Celtic supporter, can't really keep a smile off their face this morning. And it's because Brendan Rodgers is just a ridiculous winning machine in Scotland. There's just no other way to say it. He dominates this derby. He dominates these finals. He dominates these occasions. He has the composure and the poise to guide Celtic through these big moments, and he does it pretty much every single time. And it's quite remarkable to have a manager so, wrapped up in success in the way Brendan Rodgers is. It doesn't happen often. And people really, people do appreciate it, but people really need to appreciate what's happening.
10 trophies for him as well. I was trying to think. I mean, I've not looked this up, but I'm assuming Jockstein would clearly be on there with at least 10 as well. Willie Maley, people like that, potential. Neil Lennon, did he maybe get 10 odd? But it's pretty exclusive club, and he's only going to add to this going forward. I mean, it's just great stuff. Anything else, John, before we head off?
No, I think that's everything. We've got, just in terms of the Celtic Way, we've got stuff going up on the website later. I think Tony's looking at why Rodgers is so dominant in this derby fixture later. Ryan's got some match analysis. They were both at Hampden yesterday. They had a live reaction on quite late last night after they got all their media stuff done post-match, and we've got more on the website coming up, and obviously we've got the briefings all week as well, so there's plenty to look forward to on the Celtic Way itself, covering what is a remarkable period for Celtic. Yeah, I'm a happy man. You're a happy man, Hamish?
Happier when I get a full night's sleep tonight, but that's coming very soon. A free midweek as well this week, so no fixture.
The players are also, just the players are off until Wednesday. Roger says they're coming back into training on Wednesday.
Good.
So the players have 2 days off. Because a reporter asked after the game to Rogers, is this final win, is it all about the next one now? Roger said, no, I want the players to enjoy this. I want them to sink into them. I want them to celebrate. I want them to spend time with their family. So that's why the players are off until Wednesday, and then we build up to the weekend game again from Wednesday.
And I love Tannadice. I love going to Tannadice. So that's another big one on Sunday. So, yep, it's all happening, everyone. Listen, thanks very much, all of you. 700 of you watching live at the moment. Much appreciated supporting us. I guess it's pretty easy on days like today, but we appreciate your support nonetheless. Sorry, we did get a comment in from Mr. Celtic. I should just read this out. Thanks very much for the donation as well. Is it time to stop bigging up players for bare minimum? Bernardo keeps the ball side to side, not affecting games. Hatate's brave and gets it big time. I should have brought this up earlier, potentially, but might hold on to that for tomorrow. I will remember that comment. I'll take a note of it and we'll discuss it tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow, Mr. Celtic 12. You have my word. Okay, thanks, John. Thanks, everyone. Catch up with you soon.